In this video, I'm going to do a tutorial on colour correctors, how to use them, where to use them, and what to put on top. So, colour correctors, what are they and why do we need them? Well, the idea behind a colour corrector is that it, does what it says on the tin. It corrects colours that you don't particularly want to see on your face, like redness, like dark circles. The idea behind a colour corrector is you use the opposite colour to the colour you're trying to correct on the colour wheel. So, for example, if you've got dark circles which tend to be sort of purpley violetty, then you want to use a yellow toned colour because it's opposite on the colour wheel. And if you've got redness, then you want to use an opposite colour, which is going to be a green, to cover the redness up. Now, or to conceal it, to be honest. And this is where everything gets very confusing, because what is a concealer and what is a colour corrector? And actually, they're very different consistencies. A colour corrector is quite a thick consistency. Concealer tends to be creamy and light. So you tend to get a colour corrector in a palette like this, and I'm going to be using this NYX palette, which looks like that, very affordable. Whereas your concealer is going to be, as you know, tends to be in a doe foot applicator like this, and this is the e.l.f. one, also very affordable, and it has the doe foot like that, and it's a creamy consistency. So the idea is that you put your colour corrector on first, then you put your foundation on, and then you put your concealer on. So without further ado, let's crack on with the tutorial. So I've prepped my skin and I'm using a drugstore SPF, which is the Garnier Ambre Solaire Anti-Age Super UV 50. Now I'm not using an under eye cream because I don't really get dry under the eyes. The only time that ever happens is if I have used a fragranced product. Now all the products today that I will be using are unfragranced because I'm allergic to fragrance in products that stay on my skin for any length of time. So we've got the SPF on, and the first thing we're going to do is get the colour corrector. And I am using a fantastic drugstore product, which I gather has been around for quite some time, and it's this NYX colour corrector concealer. Confusingly, it would mention the word concealer on it as well, but it's basically a colour corrector. That is the idea, and you can see it's got different colours. As mentioned earlier in the colour wheel, the colours that are in this represent the opposite colours to the colours you're trying to conceal. The problem with, or colour correct actually is what we should say. So I'm going to be using the peach colour, this one here, and I'm also going to use the green on my redness. I think those are the two colours that I need. So let's start with the colour corrector and the under eyes. And I'm going to use this fluffy brush. I'm following Lisa Potter Dixon's instructions, and what she says is to get a fluffy brush, which I must admit was not what I thought I should be using. When I first started using this, I actually used a much more pointy, less kind of wide brush to this, but she says a fluffy brush, and I think the idea behind that is you want to be quite feathery with it. You don't want to be going hard like I have a tendency to do with all my makeup. You want to be very light, sort of light feathery strokes. Whether this is exactly the right brush, I don't know, but that's what she suggests. So that's what we're going to do. So let's start with my right eye. I'm going to come in as close as I can so that you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to start by just applying very light strokes to my under eye. Of course, my under eye, being over 60, well, closer to 70 these days, is actually very pliable, very sort of malleable. You can see as soon as I start to touch it, the skin kind of puckers up and folds, which is not the most helpful. But what we're trying to do is cover up the darkness. Now, interestingly, Lisa Potter Dixon says, come right down here. So she says, don't worry about that because it's all going to get blended in. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to come down here and we're just going to pat it on. And then we're also going to go onto the lid, but we're just going in the corner here as well. Get a bit more colour. Now I'm holding my mirror, which is why I can only use one hand. I can't show you as I put more colour on, or sorry, I can't show you me putting the brush into the colour, but I'm basically not dipping it in very much, but trying to get a decent amount on the brush and just very gently smoothing it, really, I suppose, rather than kind of brushing it, sweeping it gently under the eye. So let's have a look at that. So I think you can see there is an appreciable difference between this eye and that eye that doesn't have any colour on. So I'll do the other eye now. I'm just getting a bit more on my colour on my brush and just carefully coming down quite far, sweeping it, stroking it, I suppose, stroking it gently under my eye and down to the bone, and then into the corner here. And then we're going to, let me just get a bit more colour, we're going to go on the lid. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the green colour, and we're going to use that to cover up my redness. Now, I'm going to cheat a bit. No, I'm not going to cheat. I'm going to use the same brush because I don't actually have that many brushes of this type, and I think this is absolutely fine to use. So I'm going to get a bit of the green on my brush. It is a bit scary looking, this colour, isn't it? But once the foundation is over, you don't see it at all. So let's go in. I've got quite a lot of redness. It's funny, it doesn't seem to show up so much in this light, but the redness, I would say, is definitely here. And on my nose, pop a bit on there. Got quite a few of these little red lesion-y things. I think that's probably it. So I think we've now covered up all the discoloration, well, not all the discoloration, but as much of the discoloration as we want to for the purposes of this makeup. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is apply foundation, and this we're going to do gently because we don't want to disturb the colour corrector too much, but obviously we want to cover it up because we don't want to go out looking like this, do we? So I'm going to use my fantastic number 7 Protect and Perfect Intense Advanced. I absolutely love this. It's become my holy grail. I just love it. I think it's actually a really good dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Foundation, I think it's called, isn't it? The latest release. And it's all in one. It's SPF 50, and it just applies like a dream. I really, really love it. So I'm going to put a little bit on the back of my hand and then dot it around like so. So all the details on all the makeup that I use will be down below in the description box. So let's pop some on, like so, dot it around. Ooh, haven't got much room. There we go. I think that's probably enough. Now I'm going to use a beauty blender. Well, it's not a beauty blender, it's actually a beauty pie sponge. Excuse the colour. It got dyed in the washing machine. I must have mixed it with some underwear. So we're going to be quite light with our application of the sponge, as it were, because we don't want to remove any of the product that we've put on already. So lots of little light touches, I think, is the way forward. And as you can see, the green is starting to disappear. And then we will be going, I'll do the eye, I'll do around the eye in a minute. Let's get rid of the green first. Now, I mean, you don't necessarily need a green colour corrector to cover up your redness because the foundation's supposed to do that. But I just thought it would be fun to try it and see how it works, because if you are going to be going out, I mean, really, this is the kind of thing that you would be doing. This is the kind of care you would probably be taking if you were going out somewhere special or just going out in the evening, which, to be honest, is going out somewhere special for me at the moment because we haven't been going out all that much, obviously, over the last couple of years. So any occasion is a special occasion, really. But also, if you wanted your makeup to last all day, and actually talking of special occasions, next weekend is, in the UK, is our Jubilee weekend. Now, I'm not a royalist, but I do like a bank holiday or two, as we call them over here. So I'm quite happy to have an extra couple of days off to celebrate Her Madge and her lengthy stay on the throne. I think that's blended in really well because you cannot see any green or any weird little bits poking through. I think that's done very well, but I don't think it's disturbed the colour corrector. That's the point. Okay, there we are. Now the next thing we're going to do is apply concealer, a liquid concealer. And we're going to use the e.l.f., which I absolutely love. And Lisa suggests, as we all do, I think anyway, is using a lighter colour than your natural skin tone. So we're going to use this one. Because the doe foot is so huge, I'm going to put a bit on the back of my hand because I find it easier to apply small amounts rather than getting a huge dump, as it were, of colour. So I'm just going to pick some colour up from the back of my hand, and I'm just going to dot it carefully here and on my lids. And then I will use my fingers to start with, and then I'll finish off with the beauty blender, or the sponge, I should say. It isn't a beauty blender because I haven't bought an actual beauty blender, but you know what I mean. Now let's have a look and see. I think we'll need to get, let's get the sponge and we'll just gently press it in. But the final thing we need to do for the eyes is to set them with powder. Normally I'd be using the Charlotte Tilbury, but because we are going drugstore, I do also really like this L'Oreal True Match powder. So we're going to use that. Sorry, I've gone a bit gravelly. And we're going to use the nice fluffy brush, this one here, and I'm just going to just pick up a little bit because we don't want too much. We've got to be very gentle because we don't want it to look cakey. So let me come close to the camera again. Now, actually, already I can see a couple of lines here. Can you see those right in the corner under my eye, just here? But, you know, it's very, very difficult at our age to stop products settling into fine lines. After all, they are lines and things are going to settle in them, or there are crevices and what have you. So, funnily enough, I don't think I have them so much on this side. Let me just pick up a little bit more powder. But we'll see how we go. So let's continue with the makeup now. And I'm going to use the Plump and Set Brow Artist from L'Oreal. So that's the brows. So for bronzer, I'm going to use the NYX, this one here, which I really like. I have it in the shade Deep. There it is. So it's not too warm. It's on the cool side of a bronzer, I would say. I really like it. I'm using this brush, which I keep talking about getting a new one, but actually I don't know if I will, because I like to sort of squeeze it a little bit to apply it. I'm getting some fallout, but that's okay. And I'm going to put it on the tops of my cheeks. I'm going to put a little bit on here. And I'm going to use it as a kind of a one and done sort of shadow on my eyes, just to bring it together. And then we'll just put a little bit under here and on the end of my nose. And I'm just going to blend that out with my kabuki brush. So for blusher, I'm going to use these little mini e.l.f. blushers. Actually, they're called monochromatic multi-sticks. I think you can use them on your lips, but I tried that and it didn't quite work for me because I do like a double bubble, as it were, a product that you can use on lots of parts of your face. But I really like this on my cheeks because it has got a nice shimmer, so it's great for the summer. Actually, I'll use my sponge, I think, to blend that out. Can you see the shimmery effect of it? I really like that. I think it's gorgeous. And now for eyeliner pencil, I'm going to use the L'Oreal liner in the brown, I think it's called Brown Denim. It's a retractable pencil and it's really easy to use. Just check how that's looking because I can't see. Oh yeah, that looks nice and natural, doesn't it? You know what I mean? You don't have to be perfect with it at all. As long as you catch it before it sets, then I think it's really great way of enhancing your eyes without looking overdone. Now I'm going to go in with the Lash Paradise Primer. Gosh, I haven't used this for a while. Okay, that's the primer. Now we'll go with the Sky High mascara from Maybelline. Again, one of my faves, but I haven't used it for a while. I think it's because I bought a couple of high ends. This is a really great, it's one of those bendy rubbery brushes rather than a sort of normal brush. And I used to use it all the time. And then I bought a couple of high ends and I just stopped using this. I'm going to go high end rather than affordable for the lip gloss, and that's because I cannot find a lip gloss that doesn't have fragrance or some kind of fruit extract in it or something, which I think irritates my lips. But good old Lisa Eldridge, we do love her. And I know I'm always saying that I don't like a glossy lip, but actually I've sort of fallen in love with this Lisa Eldridge. Oh, this is such a beautiful colour. So here's the finished look. What do we think? Do we think a colour corrector is worth it? So should I have done half a face with concealer and half with colour corrector and concealer? I don't know whether it makes a massive amount of difference because actually each side of my face is different. This side is much droopier, more wrinkly because I sleep on that side, and this side is a little bit smoother. Also, one side's got more red than the other perhaps, so I'm not sure how much value is to be gained from that. But I do think that there is something about using colour corrector, particularly if you want your makeup to stay in place all day and to look more wide awake perhaps under the eyes, especially for us older women over 60 who really are quite wrinkly under there. And I really hope that it's been helpful to you to see how a colour corrector can be used to best effect. So if you've enjoyed this video, I'd really be grateful if you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment below and let me know, have you tried any of these colour correctors? And do consider subscribing to my newsletter, in which I share lots of intel about being 60 plus and all that entails. And thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on my next video.